farm, I'm going to make sourdough bread. I make sourdough bread at least once a week, and I've had a lot of people ask me about the process. So I decided to make a video and show you how I do it. There's a lot of videos on YouTube. You just have to pick the one that suits you best. I'm making it from this is my active starter that I feed every day. And what I did last night was take from my active starter, and I made my leaven for my bread today. And I'll use all of this in the bread. So let's get started. The first thing that you want to do is add your water. This is 600 grams of warm water. And you want to make sure that you're not using chlorinated water. We're on a well, so it's all well water. The next thing that you're going to do is add your leaven to the water, because we want to make sure that the leaven is ready to go, and it will float onto your top of your water. So I'm going to add the entire contents of the jar, and see how it's just floating there. It doesn't sink down. So that tells me that it is ready to go. Get it all out of there. Yeah, it's floating nicely. Okay, get that out of the way. And then I'm going to be adding my flour. I've got 800 grams of bread flour. Actually, I'm going to stir this first. Just stir this around a little bit. And to this, I'm going to add 800 grams of bread flour and 200 grams of whole wheat flour. And then you simply mix. You're going to stir this up, and then we're going to let it set for 30 minutes. And that's called the autolyse. And what that does is allow the flour to absorb the moisture and start to get ready for the gluten to develop. But it's really an important step. And one thing that you got to realize, all flour is not created equal. So you may or may not have to add extra water to this, which I'm going to add a little bit now too, because you can see how dry it is. I don't want it that way. So I'm just going to add just a little bit more water. The wheat flour in there really soaks it up. This recipe is about a 75% hydration. There, that's what I want. And you can really smell the nuttiness of the wheat flour with it. And now we've got it mixed. It's just a real shaggy mixture, and we're just going to let it sit for 30 minutes. Cover it. Don't leave it uncovered to where it'll dry out. So I'm just going to throw a towel over it and leave it alone. Our dough has rested for 30 minutes, so now it's time to incorporate the salt. And I always add a little bit of water with my salt to help get it out easier and disperse into the flour. This is 22 grams of kosher salt. And I'm just going to sprinkle it over there, and then we're going to work it in. And I'm going to take this out, work it in with my hands. I feel like I can get it moved around a lot better. So you're just going to get in there and mix that salt in really well. And you can see this dough is already starting to form, and it's not nearly as sticky as it was to begin with before we let it rest. So just really get in there and mix that salt into it. Turn it a couple times. And now We're going to let it set for another 30 minutes, and then we will start our folds. So that is that. Keep a container of water nearby too to rinse off your hands. So that way the dough doesn't stick to you so nearly as much. This dough is really coming together nice. So, okay, you've got it, the salt mixed in, cover it, rest, and set your timer for 30 minutes. It's been 30 minutes, so it's time for our first set of stretch and folds. You always want to keep a container of water handy to dip your hands in so the dough doesn't stick. So put your hands in, get them wet, and what you're going to do is you're going to grab the dough and pull it up and over itself and just work all the way around it. It's usually like north, south, east, west. And you can already see the texture of the dough forming. So that's it. We're going to do that 4 times, and then we'll do the last one and set it for its final rest. But that's it. Stretch and fold. So now let it sit for 30 minutes. Time for a second stretch and fold. Same as before. Wet your hands. Pull it. Grab under. Pull it up and over. Up and over. Again, north, south, east, west. You don't want to overwork it. This is all it needs. Look how that tension is already coming into that dough. And that's it for another 30 minutes. Time for our third fold. Just a repeat. Up. And up. Set for another 30 minutes. Final stretch and fold. Just like before. Up and across. Turn it up and across. Up and across. And the last one. You notice how it's holding its shape so much better. Okay, that's the last of the stretch of the folds, and now we're going to let it, what's called bench rest, for 2 hours. And then we will pre-shape. Okay, we've reached our 2-hour mark. It's done resting, and we are ready to pre-shape. So what I'm going to do is take the dough out of the bowl, put it on the counter. Move this aside. It's heavy. And this, by the way, was enough for 2 loaves. So I want to divide it into 2 loaves. And I'm just going to get a rough estimate here as far as weight. And I always like to put some oil on my hands so it doesn't stick to me so bad. This doesn't have to be rocket scientist as far as dividing it. Just get them kind of close. That's 883. This one's quite a bit bigger. There. Let me try one more time. Well, there, we're done messing with it. Okay, so what we're going to do is set this one off to the side, scale over here out of the way, and basically we are just going to roll and work some tension into this ball. And you want to use the stickiness into your advantage to form that tension on the edges. Let it drag on the counter as you're rolling. Do not add flour. If you add flour, you're just really shooting yourself in the foot. And look how nice and smooth that comes out. Okay, so that one's pretty good. I'm just going to set it off to the side here and do the other one. And that is it. Now, we're gonna let it rest for 15 minutes uncovered. I'm gonna give this one a couple more rolls. It was kind of dragging. There. Wonderful. All right, they're gonna sit for 15 minutes uncovered. Okay, now we're ready for final shaping. So what you can do, some people like to put just a tiny bit of flour on the very top because you're going to have a sticky side and a side not so sticky. So just a tiny bit of flour, not a lot, and we're going to flip that over, and then we're going to stretch. And you want to stretch it out. And again, let that counter pull against you. Some people stretch it. I've seen them stretching it into really big rectangles. I'm not going to do that because I'm going to do what's called stitching. So that's about the size I want. And then I'm going to fold. And this is called stitching. And it's similar to, I've seen some people that they laminate, but you're just going to do that. And then we're going to grab this and we're going to come over and roll it and tuck the sides. And it's going to go with the seam side up in the basket. So you have your sticky side up. And if you have to do any additional tucking, now's the time to do it. Now these baskets have been floured, but I did not have rice flour up here. It's in the barn. So I just put a heavy dose of flour in there and it'll stick a little bit, but I think I'll be okay. So let's get the other one ready. Same thing, gonna put just a tiny bit of flour on it. Stick some flour on that there. And then I'm gonna flip it over here and start pulling it out. Do the same thing then. We get a rectangle about yay size and we're going to stitch. And there are several different methods you can use for your final shaping. I just like this one. I've done it. I'm used to it and I like it. And then just roll it up, tuck, tuck, and then put it seam side up in your basket. And that is it. Now these are going to go in the refrigerator overnight. I'm going to cover them lightly with a towel and then we will pull them out in the morning and score and bake them. But for today, that's it. They're going to rest overnight in the refrigerator covered. So see you in the morning. Okay, it's the next morning. I just took the bread dough out of the refrigerator. It's been there all night long. So what I'm going to do is put it on a piece of parchment paper. And if you wrinkle this parchment paper, it will lay flat for you so you don't fight it from pulling out of the roll. So what I want to do is just dump this bread onto the parchment paper. It's stuck a little bit, not bad. And then we are going to score it with the bread lame, which is basically a razor blade. And then when you score it, you want to keep it at, like, I'm just going to do a basic line down the middle, and you want to kind of put it in at a 45-degree angle. Just like that, just to open it up so that it's going to, expand in the oven. And then we're going to get it in the oven. I do have my oven preheated to 500 degrees, and I have my Dutch oven in the getting hot. So now kind of comes the tricky part for me, since I've got this walker I'm dealing with. But we're going to put it in the oven inside the pot. And you want to be careful because this sucker is hot. Okay. Take our bread and just slide it off in there. Hot. Put the lid back on it. Close it up. And now I'm going to turn the oven down to 450. Started at 5, we're down to 450, and we're going to set our time for 25 minutes. And at the end of 25 minutes, I will go in and take the lid off, and I'll bring you back then. The timer just went off, so let's get that. In my oven, you always got to reset because it wants to shut itself off after the time. I'm resetting the temp, and we're going to take that lid off. And just lift it up and off. Looking good. And we're going to cook now for another 15 minutes at the same temp of 450. And we'll pull it out and bring you back. Okay. Moment of truth. The oven just went off, so let's see what we got. And one thing that I like to do also, oh, that looks great, is check the internal temp just to make sure. It should be 200 degrees. So, oh yeah, we are in good shape. That's perfect. And then lift it out. That is gorgeous. Put it on a rack here to cool for at least an hour before you cut it. And I'm not going to cut this and show you the crumb because this is actually, both of these loaves, I've got the other one yet to cook, are for somebody. But look how pretty that turned out. Nice ear on it. So I'm going to go ahead and cook the other one, and I will show you what it looks like, but I'm not going to take you through the steps because it's going to be exactly the same thing. And here we have the finished products. Beautiful loaves. This one in particular really had a nice ear turn up on it. So don't get discouraged. Just keep trying, keep practicing. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I love to help people. I love to make sourdough bread. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you would like to see more, I'm going to be doing a lot of discard recipes coming up. Please subscribe to my channel. Have a wonderful day, and Enjoy making sourdough.